Good day, everyone. We are the Group 1, and our topic is all about performance assessment. So, when we say performance assessment, it is also known performance evaluation, and it is the process where students assess their performance or evaluate and measure their performance. But before we proceed to our topic, let's read first these objectives. So first, design and develop performance tasks using the goal, role, audience, situation, products, and standards model. So second, develop appropriate assessment rubrics or customize existing ones to fit the desired outcome, and interpret performance assessment data or results for monitoring and evaluating learner achievement to improve learner performance and information. Are you ready to meet these objectives? Okay, let's start. What and why of performance assessment? Performance-based assessments evaluate students' demonstration skills through authentic work, focusing on their ability to create products, respond, or present presentations rather than answering pre-made questions from a list. This form of assessment emphasizes authentic work and knowledge. So, what is performance assessment? So, performance assessment is a systematic process used to evaluate an individual, team, organization, or system's performance against predetermined goals, standards, or criteria. So, it aims to measure effectiveness, efficiency, and overall contribution to organizational objectives. So, in performance assessment, it also involves setting objectives where um, it defines clear goals and expectations of students that expected to achieve. So, it also analyzes performance. So, when we say analyzing performance, it evaluates at the collected data against the criteria or standard of the performance. So, why of the performance assessment? So, why we perform and performance assessment? So, it also involves the improving. So, when we say improving performance, naga-evaluate po siya sa mga performance sa students and organize the areas for improvement and take corrective actions. Meaning and nature. So, authentic assessment is a performance assessment. It is a form of assessment that measures students' ability to apply the skills and knowledge learned from a unit or units of study. It uses direct measures of learning. The performance can be process-oriented or product-oriented. So there are two types of performance assessment, the process-oriented and the product-oriented. So basically, it focuses on students' ability to apply their knowledge and skills in real-world context. Unlike traditional assessments like standardized tests or multiple choice exam. So, authentic assessment emphasize students' ability to demonstrate what they've learned through meaningful tasks or activities. Other terms for authentic assessment are alternative assessment, direct assessment, and non-traditional assessment. So the term alternative implies that there is a mode of assessment other than the usual traditional paper and pencil test. Direct assessment means that the learner has to demonstrate concretely the knowledge and skills they have learned. Authentic assessment is also called non-traditional assessment, in contrast to the traditional paper and pencil test that we have been used to. So, when we say alternative, it is paper and pencil test. So, quizzes, mga ingon ana, nga nag-evaluate gihapon sa students' abilities to apply their knowledge and skills in real-life contexts. Ang direct assessment, nag-evaluate siya sa knowledge sa estudyante ug skills through first-hand observation by their abilities. For example, kanang mag-discuss ang teacher, then nagatawag siya og student para ma-explain, same sa ginabuhat ni Miss Irish para ma-test ang isa ka estudyante kung nakasabot ba and ma-apply pod kung what they have learned. So when we say non-traditional assessment is assessing students' abilities in ways that more closely resembles real-world tasks or challenges. For example, mga problem solving, creativity, also pod ang collaboration. So, naga-focus lang jud siya sa abilities of real-life tasks. There are two types of performance assessment: the process-oriented assessment and product-oriented assessment. So, when we say process-oriented assessment, is the learning outcomes in the form of procedural knowledge require demonstration of the process or procedure. They call for a process-oriented assessment. So, ang focus aning process-oriented assessment kay naga-evaluate siya og mga tangible and concrete outcomes of students, which is naga-generate of results of their learning efforts. So for example, kay mga project, report, or presentation or bisag unsa nga mga tangible presentation sa ilahang knowledge and skills. So gina-generate ang results. So product-oriented assessment, when we say product-oriented assessment, so student performance may lead to a concrete product. These students' products are the concern of product-oriented authentic assessment. So, kung ganiha, naga-focus ang process-oriented assessment sa generating of results of students, then kining product-oriented assessment kay focusing on students' results of their learning efforts. So, gina-measure niya ang understanding of students on their knowledge and skills. So, type of performance that can be assessed with rubrics. So, mo ni ang type sa performance, ang process-oriented skill at process-oriented assessment, and then ganing sa ubos kay product-oriented assessment. So, naa siya yung mga example. So, sa process-oriented assessment, naa siya physical skills, use of equipment, oral communication, and work habits. So, ang iyang mga example kay kaning playing musical instrument, doing a forward roll, preparing a slide for the microscope, making a speech to the class, reading aloud, conversing in a foreign language, and working independently. So, sa kaning product-oriented assessment, mausad ni siya kaning mga constructed objects, written, essay, themes, reports, team papers, other academic products that demonstrate understanding of concepts. So, for example, ang example ani niya kay kaning mga wooden bookshelf, set of wheels, handmade apron, watercolor painting, laboratory report, team term paper on theatrical conventions in Shakespeare's day, and model of diagram of a structure, the flower planetary system, and then ang concept map.
Good day, everyone. Here's the continuation of the discussion, Principles of Performance Assessment. According to Hines 2005, the following are principles of performance assessment. First, we have multiple assessment for each power standards and related indicators. So these assessments are usually based on set of key performance indicators that are used to assist transparency and performance and drive continuous improvement on the most pressing sustainability issue for brands, manufacturers, and procedures. Next, we have spectrum of tasks basic to enrichment. These assessments are designed to enhance learning and understanding. This spectrum can be seen in many educational settings from elementary school to higher education. These tasks involve memorization and simple problem solving. Next, we have essential for differentiated instruction and effective classroom management. And we have not all students may be working on the same task at the same time. So this is because differentiated instruction is allowed about the student where they are and helping them grow from there. As we all know that all students come with different backgrounds, readiness level, skill level, interest, and learning style. Therefore, as a teacher, we must assign different tasks to different students based on their individual needs and abilities. Traditional tests use as concurrent validity measure. Next, we have group process individual accountability. This refer in which a group of students interact, communicates, and work together to achieve a common goal. Group process can be facilitated through strategies such as assigning specific roles to group members, providing guidelines for effective collaboration, and promoting open and respectful communication. And last, we have students as collaborators, peer, and self-evaluators. So this approach promotes active learning, foster critical thinking, and encourages students to take ownership of their learning process. So collaborative tasks can also help students to develop different understanding and subject matter as they engage in meaningful discussion and exchange ideas. Let's proceed to developing performance tasks. The following are the criteria to design the performance task. First, we have to integrate knowledge and skills across multiple content standards or strands within a content area. Second, we have to measure the capacities such as depth of understanding, research skills, complex analysis and identification, and providing of relevant evidence. Third, we have to require student-initiated planning, management of information and ideas, interaction with other materials. Next, we have to reflect on a real-world task or scenario based on a problem. Next, allow for multiple approaches, represent content that is relevant and meaningful to students, and requires scoring that focuses on the essence of the task. And last, we have to be feasible for the school classroom environment. So we have to be visible. Designing performance task. So if we have to develop the performance task, we have also the designing the performance task also. First, we need to identify learning goals. So it should be what goals will be assessed through this performance task. Second, consider key traits implied by the goals. So it is what important qualities must student demonstrate to show attainment of the standards and other identified goals. So in this will serve also as the criteria by which student performance will be judged. Next, consider one or more of the suggested frameworks. How will the task involve higher order thinking? Fourth, we have to generate initial task ideas. This will ask how learners demonstrate their understanding and proficiency. Next, we have to check for validity and alignment. To what extent will this task provide acceptable evidence of the targeted goals? Next, we have to use GRASPS to flesh out the task details when establishing the context. Consider real-world application of learning along with student interest and experience. Using the graph's elements will help establish a more authentic situation. Next, we have to develop the strong rubrics. How will student performance be evaluated and how good is good enough? 8, we have to differentiate the task as needed. So, in what ways might the task be differentiated? This can be done by adjusting the context, audience, product option, time frame, and support. Next, assess the entire draft task and rubric using review criteria, finding if this task is ready to use. Then develop detailed direction for students. Once the draft task has met the review criteria, develop detailed direction for students. Last, we have use the task with student, make needed revision. Drafting a performance task is just the first step. Once you use it with students, you will get it invaluable feedback to help you fine tune it. So, we have a guide to developing a performance task. So this model, which is the graph model, helps define the scope and context of the learning experience. Where G stands for goals, R stands for role, A stands for audience, S stands for situation, and P stands for product. Last, we have S stands for standards. So this model helps to create a meaningful and authentic learning experience by providing a clear and comprehensive framework for designing tasks and assessment. It ensures that the learning experience is not just about theoretical knowledge, but also about practical application and real-world relevance. So here's the definition. Goal, provide a statement of the task and it establish the goal of the task. State that the problem, challenge, or obstacle in the task. For example, instill health consciousness among the young boy by particularly paying attention to their eating habits. So your goal is to stay in the health consciousness or good health. Next, role. Define the role of the students in the task and state the job of the students for the task. For example, you're an officer of a health club and one of your objectives as a club is to promote health consciousness among the students. So as an officer of a health club, you have a role in that club. Next, audience. It identifies the target audience within the context of the scenario. Example, you are presenting a brochure and your brochure is intended for all high school students in your school. So your target audience for your brochure is all students in your school. Next, the situation. This is the context or scenario of the goal. It's explain the situation and what's the context and what is the challenge. For example, most high school students are fond of junk foods, soft drinks, and a big number of students are obese and underweight. So, situation is the context of the goal since the situation here is most of the high school students are fond of junk foods. So, your goal is to instill their health consciousness by paying attention for their eating habits. Products clarify what the students will create and why they will create it. Last, we have the standards. Rubrics or success criteria. It identifies the specific standards for success and give rubric to the students or develop them with the students. To continue the discussion, I will give the virtual floor to Mr. Melehar. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. Allow me to continue our discussions. Scoring rubrics. Rubrics is a scoring skills used to assess student performance along with a task-specific set of criteria. Authentic assessments are typically criterion preferred, that is, the student aptitude for a task is determined by matching the student performance against a set of criteria to determine the degree to which the student performance meets the criteria for the task. A rubrics or scoring skills that contains the essential criteria is typically created to measure the student performance against a predetermined set of criteria, which means that scoring rubrics or rubrics provide a structured way to assess student performance by breaking down tasks into specific criteria. It's like a roadmap that helps to evaluate how well student meets the expectations outlines for a particular task. These criteria are essentials for ensuring fair and consistent evaluations, as they provide clear guidelines for what is expectations from students. By using rubrics, educators can measures how closely student performance aligns with these predetermined criteria. There are types of rubrics, and these are analytic rubrics and holistic rubrics. When we see analytic rubrics, articulates the level of performance for each criterion. So the teachers can assess a student performance on each criterion. As scoring procedures in which product or performance are evaluated for selected dimensions, which is dimensions receiving a separate store. So it means when we see analytic rubrics, the level of performance for each criterion are clearly articulated. So the teachers can assess student performance on each criterion separately. So this allows for a more detailed and specific evaluations for the students' work. The scoring procedures involves evaluating the products or performance for selected dimensions, with each dimensions receiving a separate score. These methods provide comprehensive assessments for the various aspects of the student's work, allowing for a more nuanced and detailed evaluation. For example, that we have an analytic rubric example for speaking task. Our basis is factual information, vocabulary, correctness of language, and fluency. So our basis of points is 3 points, 2 points, and 1 points. 3 points if it contained more than 5 facts about the student. 2 points if the student give between 3 to 5 facts about him herself. 1 point if the student give less than 3 facts about him herself. For the vocabulary basis, 3 points if the student use a wide variety of vocabulary words to describe self more than in the lesson. 2 points if the student use the necessary vocabulary and the basic vocabulary was used correctly. 1 point if the introduction use words incorrect and use only basic words replicated the lesson. And for the correctness of language, 3 points if less than 10% of the words contained pronunciation error. So or few grammar mistakes, 0 to 1 incorrect words choices. And also 2 points if between 11% to 30% of the words have pronunciation error. Between 3 to 6 grammar errors, between 2 to 4 incorrect word choices. And 1 points if more than 30% of the words have pronunciation error, more than 6 grammar error, more than 4 incorrect words choices. And for the fluency basis, 3 points if introduction was told with expressions, not plot, not intonation, pattern, confident in speech. 2 points if some expression in speech through mechanical in places, few pauses, but they did not interact from comprehensivity. And 1 points if very flat presentation, little intonation pattern, many pause hesitations and restarts that made it difficult to follow. Holistic rubric does not list separate levels of performance for each criterion. It assigns a level of performance by assessing performance across multiple criteria as a whole. As scoring procedures yielding a single score based upon an overall impressions for a product or performance. Which means a holistic rubrics gives one scores for a whole thing instead of rating parts separately. It looks at everything together rather than breaking it down into different parts. So this way of scoring is useful for tasks that are more complicated that can't be easily separated into different parts. These are the holistic rubric example for speaking. So 3 or excellent speaker if it includes 10 to 12 changes in the hand gesture. No apparent inappropriate facial expressions. Utilize proper voice inflection. Can create proper ambience for the poem. Thorough or good speaker if it includes 5 to 9 changes in the hand gesture. Few inappropriate facial expressions. Had some inappropriate voice inflection changes. Almost creating proper ambience. 1 or poor speaker if it includes 1 to 4 changes in the hand gesture. Lots of inappropriate facial expression. Use monotone voice. Did not create proper ambience. When to choose an analytic rubrics. Analytic rubrics are commonly used by teachers to assess each criteria separately, especially for assignments with numerous criteria. As the number of criteria increases, assigning of holistic categories become more challenging. Analytic rubrics also better handled the weighting of criteria. When should analytic rubrics be used? Analytic rubrics should be used in complex when students need a specific grades or when students are being graded on many components. Complex assignments such as books, reports, presentations, or other projects usually use analytic rubrics. When to choose an holistic rubrics. Holistic rubrics are used for quick or gross judgments, such as reviewing students' work on a brief homework assignments. They can also use for more substantial assignments, such as evaluating performance on one criterion independently can be challenging. For example, writing rubrics are holistic to separate clarity form organizations or content from presentation. Some educators believe holistic assessments captures a student's ability better on specific tasks. And also, holistic rubrics should be used in case where the assignments is skills or behavior based and only requires one set of written criteria. For assignments that requires multiple sections of descriptions and analytic rubrics should be more effective. There are another types of rubrics. And these are general rubrics and task-specific rubrics. So when we see general rubrics are used for fundamental skills like writing, problem solving, and creativity. With general criteria that can be adapted to different grade levels for task-specific assessment. Task-specific rubrics are unique assessments for specific tasks, providing reliable performance. However, creating these rubrics for all tasks can be time-consuming and challenging, but they make it easier to assessments and evaluate performance. In short, general rubric serves as broad assessment tools for fundamental skills across various tasks, while task-specific rubrics are tailored assessments for specific assignments, providing detailed and specific criteria for evaluation. And these are the end of our topic. I hope you learned something new. And God bless us all. Thank you.